Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. And for those who are new here, I am Psychic Bella Love. I am doing a pre-recorded live stream of this because I'm unable to be on camera right now, but I did want to still get this video done, and I will preface this with saying I have not watched, and I don't ever watch other readers' channels, just because I like to get my own information on anything that I do without having any influence from what somebody else may have said. If I watch stuff, it's like the Impressive channel, or Layla Lynn or Kempire to get the story of what's going on so I know what questions I'm asking. So I don't know if anybody else has mentioned any of this on spiritual channels. And you may see other people mention this going forward, spiritual channels or not. But first and foremost, I've told you everybody in this industry practices witchcraft and is a part of the occult, and they take it a big step further than what we do, and the god that they serve is not the one that we serve. He goes by Satan and Lucifer most commonly. So Mr. Diddlebop, as I like to call him, has definitely been doing his work to try to stop people from coming for him, stop people from exposing him, stop people from bringing old things up. So there's a lot of spiritual energy that's going on that I had to kind of be like, you know what? I'm just going to wait a few days and then I will sit down and do this video because Diddle's going through it right now. And beyond the crisis PR management, because if you trust and believe, they have been working overtime right now with him, and with Carisha, and we'll definitely get into that. But he's definitely got his witch doctors working on stuff too. But I will say to this, and I will not say anything more about R. Kelly publicly because of legal reasons. If you're in my Patreon, you know why. If you're not, don't worry about it. But I can't talk about him. So I will just say this: R. Kelly was known to have a voodoo lady living with him, and that did not stop karma from ultimately coming to collect him. We can only prevent karma, or not prevent it, but like delay it. But you can never fully prevent justice and karmic retribution, especially when you are somebody that has not turned and done great things to forgive, maybe what you have done in the past, nor if you're continuing to still do those horrible things and continuing to harm people. People's ancestors are not going to go easy on you, and at some point in some time, everything is going to catch up to you. I did do a reading where I solely can't channeled Kim's spirit and her energy. That is only on my Patreon. I only take requests in Patreon, and I only do mediumship readings in Patreon. But that's also where we talk about how the industry worships Satan and all the crap that they're into and the Illuminati and all that stuff. So if you'd like to join us over there, it is patreon.com/psychicbellalev. Everything will be linked down below. And just to cover our asses, everything in this video is all alleged for entertainment purposes only. We're just speculating, gossiping, and telling stories. Anyways, so because there was many times over the past week or so that I wanted to sit down and do this reading, I would be tapping into the energy, and so I would jot things down, and then everything just kept coming up that would prevent me from having the time to really sit down and do this until today. So I wrote down some notes, and then I will pull cards, but I wanted to go over the notes of things that I have been picking up over the past few days first. Um, so focusing in on like Carisha's energy, what Spirit was sharing with me is that there's a real dark energy hanging over Carisha. And I feel like this was already like starting to creep up on her before everything even popped off with Diddle, anyways, because Spirit's talking about her being in this space where her career and her future is not necessarily like guaranteed or written out for her, especially in the same way that she feels like JT's is. Because obviously JT is the real musician in the group, so it only makes sense that if the City Girls break up or they just want to move on and do their own things, JT still has that same lane in music to continue on in. Whereas Carisha knows she's not going to make it as a solo artist. Carisha does not want to be a solo artist. And while she's had the podcast, Spirit saying that she already had like started to kind of wonder, like, number one, not only was that going to be real sustainable for her in the long run, because, this is how the industry gets people too. They give them a taste of a certain lifestyle. And especially when you came up and you ain't had jack shit and you struggled your whole life up until that point, do you ever want to go back to struggling back up on the block? No. You want to stay in your cozy penthouses and mansions and be able to go to Chanel and buy a bag if you want to, and go on vacations and eat out and not have to worry about if the lights are going to get cut off. And so Spirit saying that Carisha was, aware that, number one, not only was she not going to be able to be Diddle's sugar beard forever, but on top of it, is the podcast enough to sustain the lifestyle that she's used to? What about all the little games that she puts out, the merch? Because that's all stuff that's like more quick cash grabby things and not real longevity. Like, as much as we don't like them, we'll just like compare it to like Skims, where Kim could still keep her mansion and all the other shit that she has if the show ended tomorrow, because she still has a business that produces a decent enough income for her and is projected to continue to do so for years as long as nothing crazy happens. Whereas Carisha doesn't have anything set up like that for herself. And so Spirit saying like her mindset was already starting to like kind of go to this place where she was starting to freak out a little bit. And then if you guys think that Diddy didn't know that he was about to get hit with all these lawsuits, because him and Cassie had already negotiated back and forth behind the scenes already anyways. Both of their attorneys confirmed it with the different statements that they put out. And Spirit is saying, that conversation was probably already going on for like a good at least month before Cassie's team went ahead and filed the lawsuit, because you do have to give people a certain amount of times notice that you have an intent to sue, so that way they can get themselves an attorney. And then also, if there is any preliminary settlement offers that can be made, that's the time for them to do so, from my understanding from all the legal videos that I watch all the time, and especially surrounding this case. And Spirit saying, the reason why we saw so many of these cases suddenly all get filed last week was because the deadline was coming up in New York for the ability to file for these types of suits. So given all of that, Spirit saying that Diddy's team, and especially after Cassie sort of ripped that door down, in a spiritual sense, Diddy's team knew when they were already preparing themselves, because they figured that other people who either did have negative experiences with him, or maybe even people who wanted to kind of clout chase, would come forwards with their own lawsuits and their own stories. And especially given that I said this in Patreon, the fact that he settled with Cassie so quickly, I said that is only going to encourage more people to want to come out and sue him, because it's like, oh, well, Diddy's actually writing checks for people to go away. And so I want my check to go away. So Spirit saying Diddy could have told Carisha sooner, hey, I'm about to get sued by all these girls, and brought her in on it so that they could have all planned together with PR teams and everything about how they were going to handle things. Seeing as that he knew for a good month or two that all of this stuff was going to start coming his way. But Spirit saying that they really waited until the very last minute, and then it was like his team kept pushing him, you have to tell her, you have to tell her, that then Carisha is notified of what's about to come down the pipeline. But she still, she was told it's just a bunch of lies, it's just a bunch of bullshit, she wants money. And so she chose to believe it, because obviously when you're in the situation that you're in with, like, she is, it's like, whatever, I'm not getting paid to like care either way, to be honest with you, so I'll just go along with whatever you want me to do. But Spirit saying once all the details started coming out in those lawsuits, that's when Carisha really got fucking scared. So she is really, really stressed out about what's to come next. And she's worried about losing it all, because she's seeing how many deals that Diddy's being dropped from right now. Just so you know, Spirit saying, obviously people in this industry are constantly working on other things behind the scenes, before we find out about it. So he had a lot of pending deals and business things that were, getting finalized, that he got dropped from too. So it's not just about the money that we're aware that he lost. There was hundreds of millions of dollars that he was counting on coming in that are no longer going to be available to him any longer. And some of those actually did include Carisha. So, she's losing out on stuff already too. And Spirit said that it's got her really shaking about, am I going to get canceled because I've been associated with this man? But also, she doesn't want people to like start looking at her like she's some type of a victim and was being hurt in this situation. And she doesn't want that connotation attached to her either. So that's also freaking her out. The speculation of, oh, well, we don't know what Carisha's going through. Like, a Spirit said that is like driving her insane. And she so badly wants to address that. But her team is like, do not fucking dare talk about any of this right now. And show yourself doing anything and everything except for having anything to do with Diddle at the moment, which we're seeing her do, right? Diddy does have something over her, but this isn't necessarily like about anything to do with the two of them, in the sense of like the stuff that he had on Cassie, like, naked videos and photos or anything like that. Spirit saying that this is something more about somebody else that she was dealing with privately that like the public doesn't know about, but it feels like another notable person. But there would be big problems and big drama if people were to know that this person and Carisha had been dealing with each other. And Diddy is aware of this. And this is something that came up in the Kim Porter energy. Every single person that Diddy ever deals with good or bad, from the very beginning that he decides you're somebody I should pay attention to, he's already got his people gathering information on that person. So, for instance, if he goes to a Rock Nation brunch and sees some up and coming artist that he can tell nobody really knows who this person is, but by next year they're going to be blowing up, and I might want to work with them at some point too, he will call his private investigators and whoever else he's got on his payroll and be like, find all the dirt that you can on this person, so that if someday something happens and that new artist pisses Diddle off in one way or another, he's got already evidence against that person to punish them or blackmail them or threaten them with, or whatever he sees fit to do with it. So, which also, by the way, do not be surprised if some other celebrity doesn't end up getting some big ol' canceled expose on them, separate from all of the other lawsuit stuff that just, obviously popped off last week. Because Diddy wants this distraction. He wants something else to happen as a huge distraction. He wants the focus off of him. He wants people to stop bringing up Eugene Deal's old interviews or things that Jaguar Wright said or other people, Aubrey O'Day or whatever, because we are all seeing the clips that are getting resurfaced everywhere. So Spirit said he really is trying to figure out who else has a dirty enough, skeletons in their closet that is going to be so fucking groundbreaking that people would be way more interested in this person's dirty laundry than mine, that we can arrange to have them exposed and canceled so everybody lays off of me for a minute. But Kim Spirit said that every time that things seem like they're going to calm down for Diddle Bop and it gets quiet for a couple of weeks, bam, here comes something else. And come March or around March, there is supposed to be another big, huge, shocking thing that's going to come out about him. And the next couple years are literally going to look very similar to Harvey Weinstein's and R. Kelly's and Jeffrey Epstein's, where it's just like you thought you had an idea about all the crimes this person has committed or been involved in. And here comes 5 new people that also had an experience with Diddy that they would like to share with the world, that's going to give us even more insight into what an actual evil monster this person is, and that he wasn't just only hurting people that he was romantically involved with, but our other artists, other CEOs, like he has so much dirt, and so much dirt is going to come out about him. There is going to be multiple surviving Diddle Bop documentaries, you guys. Somebody's already working on one. So he has a lot more coming his way. But getting back to Croatia, he's got tapes of her talking shit about people, including JT and Santana and her own friends, and he's threatened her, and told her what he has on her and threatened to release it if she ever crossed him or embarrassed him. She hasn't been involved in any like police investigations or anything as of yet, but that does not mean that at some point in the future, if the police decide to start really taking all of the things that are coming out about Diddle Bop seriously, because don't forget, in a lot of these cases, these started off as civil lawsuits and people bringing stories to the public that then it caught the eye of the FBI or the state police, who then decided we're going to go look into this situation, and then later on charges are filed, because I think that's what happened with R. Kelly, Danny Masterson, Um, so we're just at the beginning here. And when I say like Cassie really did, like in a spiritual sense, like rip the door off of the house that was protecting Diddle Bop. And once she did that, it's like every day there's a new window open until everything is going to come crumbling down around him and all the foundation has been exposed. So Cassie did what she needed to do spiritually. Like, this is the thing that Spirit really wants to get across about this. While, yes, we would have gotten more titillating information out of the court papers and things like that if this had gone to trial, it also would have further traumatized Cassie, who's going to have to spend the rest of her life healing from this. And to be honest with you, God knows if she ever completely does. And she had to share her trauma with the world. And you see how people have been judging her from, oh, well, why did you let that happen to you, all the way to, oh, you got trains ran on you. Her kids are going to know that their mother went through this someday. Like, that's so much to take on as a person, to share such a horrible story. So Spirit's saying, in a spiritual sense, it's like the settlement needed to happen that fast for her so that it didn't get dragged out any further to traumatize her anymore. And she did enough of her job, which was somebody needed to be the whistleblower in this situation and stand up and say, this is who this motherfucker is, and this is what he's been doing, so that everybody else who's also endured everything from him says, okay, well, I guess I can speak now. But in an even bigger sense than that, because obviously Diddy has been protected for so long. And if you go into Patreon, it'll make more sense. But basically, you know, these predators and criminals in the industry get away with everything as long as they're making money and doing what they're supposed to and being a good little puppet, because everybody's got somebody higher up than them that's controlling them in the industry. It is like the mob. And somewhere along the way, Diddy stopped making as much money for them, and the head of the crime families decided that Diddy pissed off the wrong person, and that's why this cloak of protection that was over him for so long has been pulled. And trust and believe that it wasn't just about, oh, this is going to expire soon, but somebody was told to encourage Cassie to do this. And I'm not saying that Cassie is in on any nefarious things, because I do not think so. I think they move very much like the mob in this industry. And so it goes through a chain of command, and then somebody along the way has to convince somebody to make a move. And that's how that happens. And it was okay. Now everything can come out about this man. So Cassie still will end up putting out a book in the future. I don't feel it focusing so much on any of the sordid details of what happened. It's more like a very brief chapter acknowledging that the world was privy to her trauma by her, you know, filing this lawsuit. And then the rest of the book is focused on what she had to do after she left that relationship to put her life back together and to heal from that trauma and where she's at in her life now. So it's like the happy ending story. Um, but he still has way more lawsuits to come, you guys. This was, keep in mind about trying to hurry up and make that deadline for the New York part of things. But Spirit saying he's not only going to get more lawsuits in regards to assault type situations, but also I keep feeling wage theft, business type lawsuits. Spirit saying there are lawyers all over the country right now who have been contacted by people who have grievances with Diddle Bop that they are searching through, statutes of limitations and if there has been extensions of certain laws and really trying to find loopholes to be like, can we bring lawsuits against him from a 1985? He stole funds from this business to put into Uptown Records when he started it or whatever, So he still has a shit ton more legal problems to come. And at some point, it will turn from civil to criminal. I just don't really feel confident at this point. Obviously, we're reading energy right now, so things can change in the future. But I just really, at this point, don't really feel them getting him on like an actual murder charge or really being able to 100% prove that he had something to do with Cassie's death. But I do feel like they might be able to get him in the same sense that they've gotten Young Thug in like RICO racketeering charges, making it that he was the head of some sort of crime syndicate or that he was, making calls to other people to commit crimes and murders and stuff like that. But I think it's just not 100% the way that we would want everything to come to him, when it comes to justice, unfortunately. Spirit said that he did go to other elites and other people like Jay-Z and Mike Rubin and people like that trying to get help to stop all of this stuff that's been going on and to help him with the liquor distribution issue, and doors were shut in his face. So we will end up seeing him having to sell off Revolt and the liquor company. Although, see, this is funny because I said in Patreon, I don't remember if it was this year or late last year, but I said at some point we were going to see Diddy sell off the liquor company the same way that Jay-Z just sold the Armand, whatever you call it, to LVMH. And it's like, well, now he's going to have to. Yeah, and trafficking, tax charges, RICO racketeering, like that stuff all comes up really strongly, especially connected to the way that he was running the businesses, like Bad Boy and Revolt. Like it wasn't on the up and up. It wasn't, because I don't feel like it's like the same exact way that Young Thug, like it's all these associates of his and they're like, oh, they were all in a street gang together. Like it's more going after him and a few of the employees and saying that they were all conspiring together to launder money or traffic things through those businesses. But like the lower level employees were not involved, but it was enough people were involved in the way that the crimes were committed were enough to make those charges stick to him. And they're going to compare him to a mob boss. But the funny thing is that Spirit's been saying that it's almost like, I know not we talked about, but I know everybody knows how um Biggie used to call himself Frank White and reference, the mob guys and all of that, like, and the big pen drug dealers in his music. But Spirit saying that Diddy's the one that really sat there and studied these guys. And it's like, oh, I'm a psychopath too. So let me study other psychopaths so that I can be like the best psychopath that ever existed psychopath. As far as the kids go, Spirit said they're all really scared, especially the girls, and they don't really know what to believe right now. Quincy has seen Diddy in a very different way since his mom passed away. And Spirit, and especially after what happened with Al B. Short. And so Spirit saying that Quincy, if things were completely different, he would just be done with Diddy. But he feels like if he completely turns his back on him, he has no way to protect his little sisters, that it makes his dad more of a target. And there's something about, like, Diddy always just so badly wanted to claim Quincy as his own, that Quincy feels scared for himself to leave either. So it's like, I have to smile in the face of somebody that's actually my enemy, because all of our lives and protection and safety is on the line here. So let me see. Okay, so going back to Carisha, there was somebody else other than Diddy who really pushed to make this like PR relationship sugar beard situation happen. And it feels like it's QC did it, like Coach K and P, like, we needed to seal some deal with Diddy. And so it's like almost like we traded Carisha to him to close the deal. Spirit said Carisha has had her own scary moments with him. Never to the extent that Cassie did, but he has gotten in her face, threatened her, shook her around. He is very volatile. In one moment, he can be laughing with you, the next, he's flying off the handle. If she's participated in any freak offs, she was a willing participant, both for the sake of the agreement that she made to be in this situation with him, but also because money was involved and for industry rituals or to secure some deals for herself that Diddle arranged. Both are dealing with crisis PR right now, and their teams are aware that the floodgates are open. So there's just going to continue to be more lawsuits, more stories, more accusations, more allegations. Spirit saying that Diddy does want Miami to stick around and continue to be in this arrangement with him because he feels like it offsets a lot of the criticism, because it's like, and this is something that I told y'all back here on YouTube months ago too, was that a big reason why, number one, that Carisha wasn't important to Diddy was because he did let her keep working. But number two, he was using her also in that sense and gave her that podcast on purpose to refute the idea that, oh, Diddy doesn't pay people and that Diddy stops all the girls that he works with, I mean, that he dates or has relationships with from working because, he ended Kim's modeling career. He used to always try to fuck with Misa's styling career when he would be mad at her. We all know that he stopped Cassie from working and controlled her career. And again, guys, a big portion of Cassie's lawsuit was actually because everybody glommed on to, the abuse allegations, that I think that it got very underreported, that a big part of the monetary ask in that whole situation had absolutely nothing to do with the abuse, and it was lost wages because he stopped her from working. So and we'll see more stories like that come out about him with people, and that's where I feel like a lot of lawsuits are going to pop up with him too. But he was using Carisha to try to prove the point that, no, I'm not like that. No, I'm not like that. So he wants to hold on to her because then it's like, well, then everybody's going to be like, oh, well, maybe he isn't that bad because Carisha's sticking around and Carisha's still doing the podcast and Carisha doesn't have busted lips and bruised faces. But let me just say this: abusers pick and choose who they abuse, you guys. And they always wait until they have their victim in a situation where they know that they can control that person, whether it's financially, mentally, or otherwise, before the abuse even begins. Because if somebody punches you in the face on the first date, are you ever going to see them again to end up in an abusive relationship with them? No. They make you fall in love with them first, and then the monster comes out. Abusive people are not abusive to every single person in their life, because then guess what? They wouldn't get away with it. They need to have people around them that think, oh, well, he's the greatest guy ever. So that way, when people do accuse you of things, it's much easier to be like, she's just a lying ass bitch that's mad because we broke up, rather than people really believing it. Because what always happens, people are always like, oh my God, I'm so shocked. I didn't know that Tom was a horrible person like that. He was always nice to me, when stuff comes out about people, right? So Spirit's saying J-Lo was not getting her ass handed to her because Diddy didn't have anything that he could do to control her. She was at the height of her career at that point. She was probably making just as much, if not more money than him at that point. So she didn't need him for anything. And if he would have smacked her around, she would have just left and went and found somebody else. And if she, being the white Latina that she is, ran to the police or the magazines and said he whooped my ass, he would have been canceled immediately. He would have still been in jail to this day for doing that. So the relationship that she had with him was extremely different than the relationship that many other women have with him. And I don't believe that he would, beat the crap out of Young Miami, because number one, they're not really romantically involved like that, guys. She really just is the girl that goes out in public with him, but they're not really sleeping together. They're not doing all the stuff that people think that they are. And Carisha still has enough of a platform and enough of a career, even if it's not the best, that she could walk away from him and she could ruin him if she had a story to tell about him too. And he's very aware of that. So that's why she gets treated differently. And Spirit saying that she did expect that she was going to be treated differently anyways, because we have a contract in place. This is an agreement. It's not a real relationship. we don't really go together, you know, he's not really in love with me. So like all I have to do is just pretend like I fuck this man and that we really are dating, and then just like do my podcast and go show up and take pictures with him at the Chanel store when I need to, but that's it. So she is starting to get worried though, Spirit saying, um, because she's very like she's under multiple contracts with him. She has the podcast contract, Spirit saying that all of that merch, he's somehow involved in those contracts, the roulette game, anything that she has put out, those candles. Remember when she first put out the candles and everybody was like, damn, Diddy's going hard for Carisha, promoting her businesses? That's because they were his businesses too. It wasn't all hers. Diddy never does anything out of the kindness of his heart. Like, come on now. Um, but it's obviously very hard for her to cut ties with him because it's like, well, I'm in all these crazy ass contracts with this man, and he's inserted himself into the ways that she makes money, like pretty much every way that she makes money outside of her recording contract that she had with QC. So, you know, he still made sure that he wiggled his way into Carisha's life enough to still control her by having things to use against her and having businesses that he could yank from her at any moment if he wanted to and still profit off of in the meantime as well. But Spirit said she's really worried that if he doesn't let her go on his own, because she does want to be done with him and she wants to separate herself from this whole situation, that he's gonna blackball her or try to punish her. Um, she's been suffering with stomach pains from stress and a hard time eating and sleeping right now too. And let's see. So the plan was for her and JT to establish themselves separate from the group. We've talked about that. And I do feel like Diddy was in Carisha's ear, gassing her up and planting seeds and also fucking with her in the way of like, we all know that, you know, she acts like she's better than JT, or she doesn't stand up for JT, or she treats her like shit sometimes. And Spirit saying that, you know, Diddy definitely was in Carisha's ear, gassing her up about that stuff and telling her, like, oh, her and Santana are funnier together. They're a better duo. He's got her back more, blah, 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 blah. So that was pushing Miami to want to separate from the group and to be, you know, the way that she's been. Because if you've noticed over the past few years since Diddle came around, that was when all the separation between the two of them and the they're not really friends stuff like started being leaked online everywhere and was being talked about. And any time that people have said, oh, well, Carisha and Diddy stopped dealing with each other, then all of a sudden Carisha was all up in JT's face again. And then her and Diddy would be back on. And then she's, you know, nowhere to be found when JT's going through it again. So Spirit said now she's starting to stress out, though, because it's like, I put myself in this position because of this man. And how am I going to support myself, especially if I get like somewhat canceled or people don't want to deal with me because of the associations that I've had with him? So she does feel like she's financially dependent on and trapped with Diddy at this moment, and just really trying to figure out, like, is she going to be allowed to be free from this situation, and how is she going to move on from it? But now she is starting, you know, because for so long people were trying to warn her too about him, and she would just get mad at people and flip out on them and be like, shut your fucking mouth. You don't know what you're talking about and all this. But now she is like having the wake up call that she's worried. And Spirit said that she is like, wants to go take those contracts that she signed with him to a lawyer and go see like Is there parts that I missed on this and like he owns me for the rest of my life and I don't realize that because she really is scared that, did like how he signed Cassie into that 10 album contract to prevent her from working. It's like, is Carisha gonna like have to go through something like that? That's what she's stressed about now. And the non-compete clauses. But don't be surprised, you guys, if the teams do come to some sort of agreement to release Miami from Diddle's shackles, and then we'll get a story about they'll pick the last time that anybody could say, oh, they were around each other and be like, oh, they had already decided by that time that they were just going to be friends and business partners and work on the podcast together or whatever. And then don't be surprised if almost like immediately after that, we either see Carisha with a girlfriend as a part of a throuple, or rumors being spread that she is. And I do feel like it might end up being like Ari and Moneybag Yo, because, Ari was talking about how like she thinks that Miami's hot and, how she's done threesomes with her man and they've all talked about being bi and they've been hanging out with each other. So even if it's just, feeding into rumors that they're all messing around with each other or that they're having some kind of open relationship where like she's Ari's girlfriend, just to, because that would be something that would be a big ass distraction and everybody'd be all excited about it and oh my god, look it, and talking about that, and then that would help her move on from her association with Diddy and get people to talk about her and attach her name to something other than him in the algorithm. I also wouldn't be shocked if we don't see her and Megan Thee Stallion end up like dating for a minute or something too, because that would give both of them something else to be talked about and not only their names being attached to Diddy and Tori. So, oh, and then the last thing, because they all knew that this was coming, Santana fighting so hard with academics was also like a distraction from what was coming, and they were actually expecting Cassie's lawsuit to be filed sooner. Spirit saying it got filed a couple weeks later than Diddy thought it was going to be. So that's why, like, academics is just doing what academics usually does, which is drag people. But there was a very purposeful reason for why that day and those comments were what supposedly set Santana off. And that's because he wanted, it was like, oh, hurry up, go fight and fight with him all week. So that way, like, hopefully, like, people are more focused on this. And then Cassie was like, oh, sorry, I forgot to sign a paper. So we couldn't file. So we had to wait a week. And then it still got exposed. But yeah, and we've got cases coming for him, LA, Chicago, even possibly Atlanta. He's still got a lot coming down the pipeline, guys. But this is the beginning of the end for Diddle Bob. He's never going to recover from this. So, and just sit back and watch, guys. It's about to get really, really, really interesting. So, if you guys want to book your own personal private reading with me, you can go to psychicbellelove.com. And until, what is it, the 30th of the month, you can use code THANKS to get half off for our Black Friday sale. Also, if you want to join us, patreon.com/psychicbellelove. That is the only place I take requests. We also get further into the Illuminati and how the Hollywood is the mob and all that kind of stuff. And that's the only place I take requests. I will be back live tomorrow. I will see you guys then. And in the meantime, I hope everybody has a good one. I will talk to you later. Bye.